Good morning. Welcome to the Really Big Show for Thursday, May 8th. My name is Josh Duncan. Got with me Iain Burns out there in Ottawa. A beautiful day once again in Kelowna. Iain, how are we looking out east?
It's just cloud city once again.
Oh,
Very,
it's
very
great.
cloudy. It's about I think it's about 9 degrees or something like that. It's not up to much.
Funny, it looks sunny like with the light coming in on your face, but we'll take
I think
we'll
that's maybe there's a little hole in the clouds or something.
just a bit of sun poking through. We'll take your word for it. Cloudy in Ottawa. Got a few things on the go today. NDP facing a parliament from hell in Canada. Alberta separation. It would send Canada into uncharted territory, experts say. And also looking back at last year's Jasper fire, apparently Parks Canada, the agency, knew the risks. So we'll dive into that a little bit. No hockey on the show today, unfortunately, for our devoted viewers, but I am wearing a Canucks hat. So why don't we jump right into it? And I think we're actually going to start with, we're going to jump back into Carney and Trump. We talked about a fair bit yesterday. I think we have a video here. Is that correct? Let's start off with that.
Conveyed to the president today what our countries have long proven to be true, that Canada and the United States are stronger when we work together. We can get a better deal for our workers. We can create more opportunities for our businesses. We can build stronger economies across North America when we work together. The question is how we will cooperate in the future, how we can build an economic and security relationship built on mutual respect. We agreed to have further conversations in the coming weeks, and we are looking forward to meeting in person at the G7 summit in Kananaskis in Alberta.
Well, there you go. Pretty straightforward, I guess. Those kind of videos are always better when they have like intense violin type, like orchestra music behind them. So I'm guessing I didn't see. I think Carney put this out. Obviously comes on the heels of his meeting with Trump on, I think it was Tuesday. He met with the premiers yesterday. Yeah, Iain, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think this has caught a lot of people's attention because it's extremely different in tone and content to what Carney was saying and the Liberals were saying during the election, which was, it's all over, everything's doomed and finished. The Americans are gonna go down into the fifth circle of hell, and we're gonna go off and do lots of nice trade deals with the French and the British and so on.
Hmm.
But his tone has changed. Now it's like we're gonna figure it all out and be best buds, and everything's great. So I think a lot of people are kind of saying it's like what we devoted a lot of the chat yesterday to this. It's just
Hmm.
like he campaigned he campaigned on Trump's the devil, America's not our friend anymore. And now he's only been in power a very short while in this sort of second phase of his career as prime minister. And already it's like we got the chirpy violins out and we're walking around shaking hands with Trump in a 50-second video that says that we're going to have a new deal with the US. It's kind of, which is exactly what Trump said. That's Trump's point, not Carney's point.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just, again, it's the hypocrisy thing. He's been accused of campaigning on one platform but governing on another. But I hate to break it. We broke it to the people yesterday, but we'll break it to anyone else that didn't hear it now. That's politics. They
Hmm.
tell lies. They aren't honest. Sorry to be the one to break that to you.
Yeah, for sure. And like we said also yesterday, like maybe some people did expect it. I certainly didn't. He wasn't just going to storm into the White House and be like, "This is outrageous. You do this for us," and that there's some levels to how you do handle this. So again, we'll have to see kind of what comes of, what kind of new deal might come out of this, and what kind of new trading partners do come out of this. Not everything in this is mutually exclusive, and obviously, you can stand up to the states of it without being violent or aggressive. But yeah, I would imagine some people across Canada, as we addressed yesterday, maybe a little disappointed that he didn't go in there guns ablazing.
I think it's something that has to be learned, doesn't it? It's just with every new generation. It would be a bit sad if they were like 60, 70-year-olds kind of like, oh, gee, oh, darn, I thought Carney was going to go down there and kick some butt.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
you're that old, and you're surprised, then I don't know what I can do for you. But if you're in your 20s, you're some like naive child, then all right, welcome to life. But by the way, a little bit of breaking news here.
Hmm.
There is a new pope.
Oh my
They've got
God.
the white smokers out,
Oh,
but we don't know who it
really?
is. Yeah.
So how long does it take them to announce it? That seemed really quick. Day two?
Usually, yeah, that was quick. I mean, that was extremely rapid. It took a bit longer to get Francis, I believe. It was more like 2 weeks for him.
Oh.
But what happens now is he takes off the cardinal red,
Hmm.
and then they put on the white. So he does a quick change. Then he'll go to the balcony, the balcony that Francis would wave from and all the
Yeah.
rest of them.
Yeah.
And then that's when we find out. We'll just see his face, whoever it is.
Cool. It's such a fun
So I'll
reveal.
keep an eye on that.
More things should be revealed. Like, we shouldn't be working election night. We should literally just wait and then have the winner
Do it by
like
chimney.
emerge. Yeah, like emerge with some smoke and wave on the balcony. But yeah, those Catholics do it right. Well, actually, to our point yesterday, we were talking about me watching Conclave on the plane. I did download it on Amazon Prime, so I have a flight coming up, and I think I'm going to watch Conclave and really learn how this process takes place. And I guess
Yeah,
maybe
just in time.
Just in time, yeah. Just missed it. We'll be finding out quite soon who our new pope is. Do you know any of the contenders? Do you have any guesses? Any bets?
There are contenders that have been put out there, but I don't think like there's no way to really know. I don't think there's any point trying to guess. Like nobody guessed Francis, for example,
Yeah.
and I don't think anybody actually guessed Benedict either, his predecessor, or like maybe some outsiders took a gamble on him. But I think it's really hard to know because there's so many different factors. But there is an American
Yeah,
whose
I
name
did see
I've
that.
forgotten now, who is kind of like he's considered to be the leader of the sort of traditional sort of right. If right and left doesn't really work for the Catholic Church, but he's considered to be a very traditionalist sort of guy, and he's like the favorite from that side. And then there are a few other ones. There's a couple of like African cardinals. That would be a big deal, obviously, if it was an African, because they've never done that before.
Yeah, that would be a big deal.
But who knows?
Oh, look at that. Our producer got up front
The
page.
Guardian.
I believe the Guardian. There's the news. There's the smoke. Wow.
Big deal.
That's
But
pretty
yeah,
cool.
I mean, they've only ever been European except for Francis. Francis was the first non-European, and even he was. It's a bit of a stretch to say that he was much other than a European. His parents were Italians who moved to Argentina, and he spoke Italian and all the rest of it. So if it was like a proper non-European, like
That'd be a
someone
big deal.
from the Philippines, for example, like our dear Rommel there, that would be like a really big deal. I would be like, wow, okay. And they need to appeal anyway. They need to appeal to the rest of the world. So that's what I would watch for. See if it's going to be somebody like a true non-European.
Very cool. Yeah, maybe that'll maybe we'll know by tomorrow for I don't know who's doing the show with you tomorrow. I don't know if Jim's back, but maybe
It is
tomorrow
Jim.
or there you go. Maybe tomorrow you guys will have some Pope talk to really dive into. All right, well, to the NDP, which we've talked about a little bit over the last couple days, a former MP saying the NDP faces Parliament from hell without their official party status, and that's not mincing words. That's quite the statement. So why don't you run us through exactly what that might mean for the NDP, Iain?
Well, that's based on the last time that they didn't have party status, which is after 1993.
30
And
years.
a lot of this article is they're just talking about how, or he's talking about how, just how much it sucks, really, how like nobody pays attention to you in Parliament. Obviously, the money question is a massive one because you're excluded from all kinds of bennies, all kinds of benefits from the state that you would get as an official party.
Mm-hmm.
But then it just kind of goes on as well later on in this story. I think it goes on to like what's really important as far as I'm concerned, which is kind of what they do from here and who they become, who they like, what are they going to do? What are they going to be? Because it hasn't worked being the kind of slightly more left-wing Liberal Party. That hasn't worked.
Mm-hmm.
They need a new strategy, don't they? And a lot of it's about that. And it's kind of, that decision, really, the decision that they have to make about what they're going to be.
Yeah. And I have some comments from interim NDP leader Don Davies in here. And actually, at the start of this story, I'm kind of scrolling back up. The comment, the Parliament from Hell, is from Sven Robinson, who was a Burnaby MP for the NDP from 79 to '04. And he's talking, obviously, like you said, about 93. The quote is, "I remember jumping up and down trying to get recognized by the speaker from the very back corner of the House. We would get a few questions every week. That was it." I kind of feel bad, just kind of, you're in Ottawa trying to make a difference and you're just absolutely ignored in every sense of the word. And I
Yeah.
guess the
Well,
difference
because
here.
Singh was pretty regularly getting
Mhm.
questions like every time in question period, for example.
Yeah,
But that's not going to happen anymore. So,
yeah.
they really are going to have to be like, guys, listen.
Hello. Um, and the
But
one
they need to
difference
have something to say. That's the important bit. They got to
that
have
is
something to
true.
say.
Yeah, they really do have to kind of, I don't know if reinvent's the right word, but they got to forge a path forward for sure. So that'll be interesting. The one difference it says in this story is that in the mid '90s when this was happening, the Liberal had majority government, and now it's of course a minority, which as we've kind of talked about earlier this week. Carney seems to want to be a little more collaborative with other parties. That could just be speak, but if it's true, maybe that will mean the small number of NDP MPs actually get a little more say and opportunity to speak. But we'll have to see.
Well, they might get completely frozen out as well by the Liberals, who, as we previously discussed, I don't think the Liberals are over the moon really with their alliance with the NDP because it didn't really benefit the Liberals. If you
Mm-hmm.
look at how unpopular Justin Trudeau and Singh were sort of simultaneously before Carney came in as the
Yeah,
White Knight,
yeah.
I think I don't know. I have a feeling that if the Khan dog, if he kind of moves the Liberals more into the centre, possibly even dare I say it, the centre right kind of thing, like take a lot of the conservative turf. If they do that, then it's a no-brainer what the NDP should do and probably would do, which is attack very hard from the left in a sort of very traditional leftist attacks and start talking about Carney the banker and all that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think to an extent for the NDP, it kind of depends what the Liberals do because Trudeau came and like ate their lunch in a way, didn't he? Squatted on their traditional territory, and he was like all about very left-wing causes and indigenous issues and things like that. And the NDP were kind of outflanked by him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true. They're just like, all right, well, I guess we'll focus on dental care and that kind of stuff, and $10 a day
Groceries.
childcare. Yeah, groceries. All right, well, moving on over to Alberta. More talk about separation, with legal experts saying it would send Canada into uncharted territory. And I mean, that does seem kind of obvious. I mean, I guess we've had separation talk from Quebec for a long time, but it feels like the Alberta separation talk is maybe at a more serious point than, at least in my life that I remember. I don't have maybe the history, and maybe it's been big some other time, but it does seem like it's uncharted territory almost already.
I think so. I mean, it surged a bit in the 70s, didn't it? Under the 60s and 70s, maybe under Trudeau's daddy, Big
Trudeau
Daddy
Senior,
Trudeau.
Big Daddy
Yeah, Trudeau
Trudeau.
Senior. Because the oil issue, the oil question has been around quite a while now,
Mhm.
and there's I was talking to Jim about this actually. There's in the museum in Ottawa, the Science Museum, they have like a whole section dedicated to energy, and there's a bit on oil. And you go there, and they've got like an old banner from 1979 or something like that, and it's kind of like I can't remember what it is, but it's like let the Easterners freeze or something like that, and it's like because they felt that they were being restricted in how they could sell their oil in
Yeah.
Alberta. So it's not a new story, that resentment, but I feel like there's a different, we're in a different world now, aren't we? And there's a different flavor to it for sure, I think. And it's probably just because it's been going on for so long, and I think people in Alberta are just so sick now. They're so fed up of it, seeing the same thing happening again and again. And then there's also like this weird arrangement with the US where the Americans are at least, officially coming out of the president's mouth are trying to annex Canada. So maybe a lot of people in Alberta are thinking like, all right, well, maybe not Canada, but how about Alberta? But in this
Yeah.
story here that we're discussing, it's all about like the nitty gritty and stuff like what like what would happen to Banff and Jasper and stuff like that, which are administered by the federal government. What would happen to all the treaty lands, all the First Nations territories? What would they have for a currency, and all this kind of thing? Like the actual sort of, bread and butter,
Well,
that would be involved in separating.
I can answer a couple of those. Banff and Jasper, just give them to BC. They're much more BC anyway. I might
Yeah, they're
make some
close.
people
They're
angry,
close
but
enough.
come on, they're mountains. They're close enough to right there. We'll take those two off your hands. For money, Berta Bucks, I think, is a pretty easy solution right there. Really rolls off the tongue. The other one you mentioned, yeah, treaty lands. That seems like a bigger, obviously, point of contention. And I've seen a little bit online. I haven't followed this as closely as others, I'm sure, but I have seen a little online, and it does seem very a little chippy right now. Back and forth. Obviously, the Chiefs are not happy, and then you get the discourse on social media and stuff with everyone's an expert and have their opinion. And I saw I think it was the Indigenous Affairs Minister or something who just looked like he was sweating through his shirt. He got interviewed outside the legislature, and he was just like, "Yeah, I'm kind of in a tough spot here." Like he seemed pretty open. I don't know if we have. I don't think we have that interview right now, but kind of felt bad for the guy. He was like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
I have a really good relationship with all these chiefs, and they don't really like me right now. Like I don't know what to do." So
I have a feeling though that we haven't heard this argument yet, or I haven't heard this argument yet. But I feel like if they're really serious, the independence, Alberta, separatists or whatever you want to call them, then they'll come out and they'll say, look, these treaties were signed with the Crown. That's the argument, isn't it? From a lot of the First Nations, they say, look, we didn't sign this with Alberta. We signed this with the Crown, which is, the King of Britain, King of England.
Charles.
So I have a feeling what they'll say is, look, don't worry about the Crown. Like we're going to be Alberta within the monarchy still. So King Charles or King William, it'll probably be by that point, will still be the sort of king of Alberta. So all your deals with the monarch are going to be fine. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about the Crown. It's just that Alberta is going to be sovereign. That's all. So, and I actually struggle to think what the argument in return would be there, but we'll see. But I have a feeling they might do that because that's what happened in a lot of other former British colonies. They kept the king or queen or whatever, and that helped them in a legal sense as well as a lot of other ways.
You might know better on this. Would the monarchy, would King Charles, King Will, whoever it might be, would they care at all if Alberta's sticking around in, the Crown, or would they want them to stay in Canada? Would they have an opinion at all? Like, what would the Crown's
We
view?
wouldn't we wouldn't know if they did. Like, and I'm basing that off when Scotland had an independence referendum in 2014. The Crown just shut up. The Crown didn't say anything.
Okay.
But the Scots, the nationalist Scots, the pro-independence Scots, they said that they wanted to keep the Queen anyway. They wanted to keep the monarchy and they wanted to keep the pound and all sorts of things like that. So it was a funny one because maybe if they'd said that they wanted to be a republic, then maybe the Queen would have said something. I don't know. But if you say that, then I don't know. They can't really respond because they're supposed to be the monarchs of all kinds of places. Like all around the world. There are lots of countries that have King Charles as their monarch. So it wouldn't be that strange if it was just add one more, add Alberta.
Yeah. Interesting. I never really thought about that factor of it. Anything else on independent Alberta you got?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's just about a lot of it's about kind of a bit boring actually. It's just about like the legal like what's the actual what does the ink say on the paper about a province separating from Canada, and can you actually really do it and all the rest? It's like none of that really matters. That's just lawyers being nerds, frankly, because if the Alberta people voted for separation, it would happen, you know. It
Yeah,
doesn't
they're
matter
gonna
what the law says.
find a
They
way.
would figure it out, wouldn't
It
they?
it
Yeah.
might get messy, but they're gonna figure it out.
Yeah. But then the other thing, I mean, it's not really mentioned here, but it has been mentioned elsewhere, is like you want to separate because of oil and gas. Like you're being you know, you're being limited in the extent to which you can sell your oil and gas to the world, mainly because of BC and Quebec, and they don't, you know, they don't want to allow it through their land. But if you separate, and if Alberta becomes an independent country, surely there's even less chance that Quebec and BC are going to let you do that.
Yeah,
They might even decide that you can't have the pipeline that's already there, you know, like the Trans Mountain. But I don't know. That's for them. That's for them to figure out.
yeah. I'm sure they've thought it through very extensively. um, maybe they'll come to a deal with Trump and they'll just go south and maybe through Montana and out to
Out to
Washington.
California or something, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that would be the thing is, it's only really plausible. It only really makes even a tiny bit of sense if they join the US, doesn't it? It's not really practical otherwise.
yeah. They got even more liberals to deal with if they're going through like Cali or Washington State. They're gonna have to go like south down to maybe Texas and then like out to
Yeah,
the Gulf of America.
get
Yeah,
it right. Yeah. The
yeah,
Gulf of Alberta, they'll change it to.
yeah. There you go. Yeah. Um, what is next here? Looks like all the premiers. Is this a video? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is, isn't it?
Let's start with the video because I can honestly say I don't know what it is.
On everything. In fact, I think we supported different people in the last federal election. We don't agree on everything.
Uh-oh.
In fact,
I think we're double playing here.
But what I will say is we have a constructive conversation at the coffee table. I continue to look forward to having a constructive conversation.
Okay, we might have to do a take two on this. Bear with us. Here we go. There's our friend Danielle.
He and I have a great friendship. We don't agree on everything. In fact, I think we supported different people in the last federal election. And so we don't have to agree on everything. But what I will say is we have a constructive conversation at the coffee table. I continue to look forward to having a constructive conversation with him at the coffee table. But he's the Premier of Ontario. I'm the Premier of Alberta. We just have different issues that we have to respond to in our respective jurisdictions. I don't tell him how he should run his province, and I would hope that he doesn't tell me how I should run mine. But we have a very respectful relationship, and I hope that continues. As most Albertans know, I have repeatedly stated I do not support Alberta separating from Canada. I personally still have hope that there is a path forward for a strong and sovereign Alberta within a united Canada. So I am going to do everything within my power to negotiate a fair deal for Alberta with the new Prime Minister. My party quite clearly in their founding documents came together and they support a strong, united Canada, protecting constitutional sovereignty.
There you go. Good talks at the coffee table.
I think she said COP, didn't she? Not coffee, as in like conference of premiers or something like
Oh, maybe.
that. She's using an acronym, but it did sound a lot like coffee table, didn't
Maybe I got duped by the caption there.
it? Yeah, but I don't know. She's doing the classic there, isn't she? It's like trying to do a business deal with someone. She's like, look, I don't want to murder you. Definitely not. But my
Never wanted
friend
to murder
over
you.
there really wants to murder you. So give me the best deal you can and you won't get murdered.
Yeah. Yeah, it's shrewd negotiating. Yeah.
But to be fair, why not? This is what Quebec does. This is like this, the Scottish, for example, have done this within the United Kingdom. It works, you know. The Scots and the Quebecois, whatever, they get like both of them, they get a hell of a deal in Canada and the UK, respectively. Like amazingly good deal. The Scots get so much money from the British taxpayer. It's just kind of they might as well send it up there in tankers, take the gold from London, and then obviously we all know about Quebec. They just get whatever they want,
Yeah.
basically, and it's predicated on this idea that if you don't give it to us, then we're going to leave. So I mean, I suppose Alberta, they've been like brutalized in the sort of true meaning of that word. They've been slapped around so much that it's kind of made them be brutal and be sort of cynical. And I think they're looking at this and they're thinking, all right, well, we'll do a Quebec. let's see what happens.
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. Absolutely. And she was talking about Ford there. We do have another slide with Ford. Do we have another video? Yeah, let's jump to that video. I want to see Dougie's response or what he said about it.
And I was pretty blunt. I said, you know, it's time that your government starts showing some love to Saskatchewan and Alberta, because as I said, like, the last Prime Minister showed no love. Matter of fact, to the contrary. So it's nice that we're heading out there to Saskatchewan for an FMM meeting on, I think it's on June the 1st and June the 2nd, which is a good olive branch, and had a good discussion. So I'm a big believer of pipelines, big believer of getting rid of C-69, and we need to unite this country. And the way we're going to unite this country, as I mentioned to the Prime Minister in front of the premiers, show some love to the people of Alberta and Saskatchewan, and let's start diversifying our trade when it comes to oil. Let's start building pipelines west, east, north, and yes, south as well. But they're getting a discount, by the way. We ship them $100 million worth of oil. They turn it into $300 million and ship it out. I think the number, we're giving them a discount of 20%.
I think we got the gist of that. I mean, it sounds like him and Danielle are preaching the same thing, really. Dougie wants
Well, there's one
every
difference.
direction.
One difference that I see, which is that our boy Dougie there wants to be the next Prime Minister of Canada, I think, and so he's singing from that sheet, whereas Daniel Smith, I don't think has any ambition to be the Prime Minister. So Doug's kind of, because obviously previously he said, I can't remember his exact words, but it was something like, you know, we've got people talking about, like, let's just leave the country. And that was kind of like a dig at Smith, or, you know, that's how it was perceived. And then now here he is with the sort of, that was the bad cop. Now he's good cop. He's like, show him some love.
Let's show some love to the people of Alberta and Saskatchewan.
But Dougie there, you see, he's positioning himself as the, like, Mr. Sensible, Captain Canada and Mr. Sensible, isn't it? And he's really trying to get into the middle of almost every issue and be like Mr. Sensible on every issue. That's what he does in Ontario, and that's what I think he's trying to do that on a national level as well. And yeah, I mean, good luck to him, I guess. Do you want to have Prime Minister Doug Ford yourself? You excited about that prospect?
No, it does not excite me. But I do find it funny, like, the amount of people that are just kind of like sharks in the water as Pierre started to struggle, and obviously he said he's staying on now. But you had that video, like, before the election that came out from Tim Houston, like the premier of, I believe, Nova Scotia. Ford's obviously always kind of inserting his name into the mix, so it's funny watching these guys just circle and be like, I'm waiting for my chance. Like, I got to say the right things. And for now,
the crown is heavy, isn't it? The crown is heavy on the head. And Polyev, he took a punch there, didn't he? And they saw the crown slip. And Dougie, you know, he doesn't need more than one invitation to go and take a bite.
No, definitely not.
Just like his brother, he said something along those lines once, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. All right, what do we got here from Mr. Blanchett?
For a long time you've been talking about trying to separate from Canada. Now we're seeing that out in Alberta. For the people in Alberta who want to separate, do you have any tips for them on how to actually get the job done?
Our success so far does not place me in a position to give them tips about what to do, but I could give them tips about what not to do. Not now. The first idea is to define oneself as a nation. Therefore, it requires a culture of their own. And I am not certain that oil and gas qualify to define a culture. But it's theirs to decide if they want to reivindicate the right to self-determination. Would never interfere in that. It belongs to them. I would like us to be the first to do so, however.
He's never been to the Stampede, has he? clearly.
I guess not. No, that was pretty funny. Some shots fired. Oh man.
Yeah.
I
But
like
I
the
don't know,
beginning
like
too, when he's
I
like,
would I would argue with that.
yeah, I mean,
Sorry,
I
go
would
on.
too. I think Alberta. I mean, I think most parts of Canada don't have a culture as strong as Quebec's. I think they're kind of at a different level for many reasons. But yeah, I would argue with that. But I still think it's a pretty funny dig. I did like him saying like I could give them tips on what not to do. Like we haven't been very successful. That was a very funny like 30 seconds or so. I hadn't seen that before.
Yeah, he is like dry, isn't he? He's kind of he's a funny guy. He seems pretty miserable a lot of the time, but it can be quite funny. But yeah, I don't know. I think the prairies in general have their own sort of culture, don't they? For sure. And I
Yeah,
know
I would say it's more
I'm pretty
prairies
confident
than
in saying
just
that BC
Alberta.
does as well.
Yeah, I would say though it's more prairies like than just Alberta, which isn't a bad thing, but
Yeah.
it's definitely like a prairie culture. I mean, maybe it's more centered in some ways in Alberta, but I think as a whole, especially Alberta, Saskatchewan. I haven't been to Manitoba. I can't speak as much to that, but those two provinces for sure, I would say have somewhat of a culture, and BC. But like I said, I mean, Quebec has all sorts of culture, and that's it's a different
Yeah.
bar than what we got out here.
Although they are very hostile to one very important element of their culture and their cultural heritage, which is the kind of English speaking element, particularly in Montreal, which was, Montreal was like basically the capital of Canada and commercial capital of Canada for a very long time. And you had lots of English speakers, like a really big Jewish community, lots of Irish people. Like when I go over the river there and I go into Quebec, loads of like places like hills and towns and stuff have Irish names. Like one of the main sort of when you cross the bridge from Ottawa into
In the
Quebec, one of the first
Gatineau?
places that you arrive in is called Chelsea, and then Wakefield.
Oh yeah.
So it's like there's this really strong English speaking element to Canadian culture, but they're so hostile to that, and they've basically done everything they can to try and kill that and extinguish that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I agree, but they're not they do have a lot of culture there, but they're not particularly multicultural, let's say. They don't like the idea of other cultures. And that we see that with like Islam as well, like lots of problems with people want to wear hijabs and things like that. They're quite hostile to that in Quebec for their
Yeah.
own reasons.
And when you cross the river, you're saying that's into Gatineau, right? That's the city that's kind of right
Yeah.
there with Ottawa. Yeah. Okay.
Gatineau's the city, but then I mean, no offense to Gatineau, but there's not a lot in Gatineau really that you're gonna want to see. And also, Gatineau used to be called Hull. That's what people used
Yeah.
to refer to Gatineau as. So it's kind of a relatively recent thing. And Hull obviously is an English town. So you go from like Hull, what was Hull, to Chelsea, another English part of London in
Mhm.
England. Then Wakefield. There's just loads, and you walk around and you go anywhere and there'll be some like plaque to like an Irish farmer or something like that that settled there
Mhm.
because there were lots of Anglophones that sort of built Quebec, frankly, but the present sort of Quebec nationalism just is completely intolerant of that fact, and that's a bit sad, I think.
It's sad. That is sad. I'm just looking. I like everything. I work it back to hockey, but I know the Gatineau Olympiques are the QMJHL team in that area. I thought there was also a Hull team as well, but maybe they're not in existence anymore, or maybe
Or
they're.
maybe they changed their name,
Yeah,
just
that's
like
what I was.
the
That's what
town.
I was kind of trying to to research. It must have been like the Hull. Oh yeah, they used to be like the Hull Blackhawks and the Beavers.
Should have been the Hull Hippos, shouldn't they?
In 1973, they became the Hull Hippos, the Hull Festivals. I don't know what kind of name
Right.
Festivals is. That might be worse than Mammoth, but they were only the Festivals for 3 years before they became the Hull Olympiques, and then it was changed to Gatineau Olympiques in '02, which I guess is where when they all amalgamated. So fun,
Yeah,
interesting. I didn't know that. I learned something today.
that's what we're all about on this really big show.
We're
Got to
learning.
learn something.
We're learning. I love it. Why don't we jump into this Fraser Institute reality check, as they say. And you looked a bit into that. Can you dive into it at all, or do we know?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of words in here. If you click on that link, and it sounds like big and smart, doesn't it? When you look at it, it's like, okay, get ready to learn. And all it is we're running a deficit, and we're going to continue to run a deficit. A deficit means we're bringing in less money as revenue than we spend, and we also have national debt, which is what happens when you do that. When you spend more than you earn as a government, you have to finance that with debt, which goes to your national debt. I know that's very simple, but that's literally what this article is.
Yeah.
This article just points out, because that they've promised to bring the income taxes down, but both of them did, the Tories and the Liberals. But the Liberals said they're going to bring it down from 15 to 14%, which is on the first bit, like the lowest bracket.
Yeah, I think like 55 and below annual income.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And basically, they're saying that middle class tax cut and all that, a tax cut for middle class Canadians. And this article just comes out and says it's not really a tax cut, lads, because it's going to be funded by debt, and that debt will have to be paid for at some point. And it's going to be you're the ones that are going to have to pay for it. So they're saying it's not actually a tax cut, it's a deferral. It's like a tax deferral. I mean, it is obviously true in a very sort of simplistic way, but there are lots of other things to bear in mind, and that it isn't really factored in here. Like, for example, Mark Carney might be right. Believe it or not, it's possible. I personally don't think he will be right on this, but he might be right that he's going to grow the economy and supercharge the economy. It's going to be the fastest growing economy in the G7 and all the rest of it. And if that happens, then your revenues increase. Therefore, you can pay off that debt. But I mean, that is still going to be from revenue. So I guess Mr. Fraser here would argue with what I'm saying and say that it's just the same thing. But yeah, your revenue levels never stay the same anyway, so that could change. And then there's also, there's also spending, and that's what they say. They say, look, if for this to have been a real tax cut, it would have had to be accompanied by like an equal amount of cuts in spending. And obviously the Carney government hasn't promised to do that. They've promised to spend more, considerably more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just an economic point, really. And it is true. But the reality is, people like me and you, mate, I don't know if you realize this, but as things stand, we're not going to get pensions, for example. We're not going to get much of anything, really. We're just going to get kicked in the face by the time we're old. So it's like, if you look at the fiscal trajectory, it's me and you, really, that we're the ones that are going to eat this particular poison pill. Mark Carney will be very happily in his tomb by that point.
I expect to
So get
die
ready for it.
super early anyways, so I'll be fine.
Before Carney.
It'll be my wife and children that get screwed. I think
Yeah, and your dog.
My wife's gonna live until my dog will probably be dead by then too. I think my wife's gonna live until she's like 100 based on her family history, whereas I'm probably looking at a shelf life of like 60. So yeah, not my problem. But well, I mean, this is kind of connected on that note. Why don't we jump ahead to the next one? This is nothing new, really, but calling on Carney to scrap the emissions cap on producers, not just, as we've done or as we've seen with, the day-to-day stuff like that affects us, but scrap it at the industrial level. And it sounds like they have no plans as of now to do that, but I would imagine there will be continued calls for Carney to fully scrap the carbon tax at every single level.
Yeah, well, I think they're probably more upset actually about the emissions cap. They don't even call it an emissions cap; they call it something else. But Gilbo and the rest of them that created it, but it is an emissions cap, just like the carbon tax was a carbon tax, even though they tried to give it another name. But yeah, these CEOs are saying, like, don't do that because that's crazy. Like, let us like unleash the beast kind of thing. But they also, there's that de facto ban on oil tankers. on the BC coast. And I can never remember where it starts, but it's somewhere. It's like the northern coast, isn't it? Like I think it's sort of like south of Haida Gwaii or something like that, isn't it? It's around about there anyway.
Like
So that kind of excludes Prince Rupert and all that from. You can't get oil out of there because they just banned that. So they're saying, come on, sort it out. Because obviously they want to expand there. That was one of the dreams, wasn't it? Have a pipeline going out of there. And then the other one is Impact Assessment Act, which is they say, prevents them from basically doing anything, building anything, which is partly true, I think.
Which is like the environmental
so
checks and stuff. Like,
what's that? Sorry.
Is that what was the act called? The
Impact Assessment Act.
So is that like environmental checks that they basically have to do before?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one, and it's a very strange one, that, because it's like, I mean, I don't know how much you've read about it. That's C69, that one, which you've probably heard it. Yeah. No new pipelines act.
I know the gist of it for sure.
Yeah, that's like it forces them to do something that no one else anywhere in the world has to do, which is kind of like they've got to factor in like second, third order effects and stuff. It's like it's kind of hypothetical. It's a very strange regime, a very strange arrangement, and it really, as you might imagine, really, really upsets them. They hate it. So yeah, they want rid of that. But at the end of the day, these are the details, but the broad brush approach is probably sufficient, I'd say. And it's what Doug Ford just said, give him some love. Give him some love. That would count as love.
Love. That would be love. It feels like there's a lot of ways in which Canada is like trying to be, go the extra mile when it comes to environment, which I think most people can be like, yeah, that's great. But when lowly old Canada is like doing all this extra stuff that in the end of the day kind of falls and hurts Canadian, residents, whereas, China and the UN, like none of these other countries are doing it. It's like, how much of an effect does it really have if only we're doing it? Obviously that was a big thing with the carbon tax. Like, we're sitting right next to the US that doesn't have a carbon tax, and our emissions are this low compared to them. And so that sounds similar. Yeah. Whereas like, why do we have all these extra, things in place that, maybe the idea behind them is great, but is it really helping the world if we're the only ones kind of like, it's like a needle in a haystack or just not much that we're really making.
Well, I think what rubs me up the wrong way is it's just purely like what I guess you would call logic or just like sound reasoning. It really upsets me that Stephen Guilbeault and Mark Holland and lots of the sort of big ministers, Justin Trudeau, obviously, even Carney kind of a little bit said something like this, that they come out with the line, which is like, I'm paraphrasing here, but it's like, you don't want to reduce emissions. It's like, so are you okay with floods in BC and wildfires in Alberta and blah, blah, blah. It's kind of like, there is no connection, pretty basically.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean.
Within the realms of reason and sense, there is no connection between emissions out of Canada and wildfires and floods and other effects of climate change in Canada, because Canada's tiny. It doesn't produce anywhere near enough emissions to change the world temperature. So it's like I just hate that simplistic approach where they try and merge those two issues. Climate change, of course, is happening. That's completely undeniable. It's probably measure it yourself. It's so obvious, and it is linked with certain weather events and all the rest of it. But there's nothing that we can do about it. We could all go back to the Stone Age, and the world's temperature is going to remain the same. It's going to increase at the same level. So I think that they lost a lot of people with that attitude, didn't they? But I don't know. And then the other thing is, it's great for Canada to do all this, but what about when we open up our wallet and there's nothing in there anymore? Like now, like, can we still do it then? I mean, it's all right to do it when you're flush with cash, as you might say Canada was when Trudeau was elected, sort of thing, like when you're feeling good about the economy. Mm-hmm. But it's a lot harder to do that sort of thing when the economy is in the dumps like now.
Yeah, 100%. And it's going to be met with more pushback. So another perfect segue, because climate change, wildfires, all the connections, Jasper. And this one is pretty interesting. Parks Canada I think yesterday, saying it left more than 500,000 acres of dead pine standing as a known fire hazard in Jasper National Park before that wildfire burned last year. The agency Parks Canada did not do any controlled burns prior to the disaster. You know, one of those things you look back and you're like, we're usually, I feel like usually Canada is pretty good. I mean, maybe I'm looking more at BC, where it feels like BC can be very good with preventative stuff like controlled burns. And yeah, you can't stop everything, but BC's fairly good on the wildfire front. You know, some summers it doesn't feel like it, but at the end of the day, like BC does a pretty good job trying to be proactive when it comes to wildfires and this and that. To leave 500,000 acres of dead pine and just do nothing about it, you know, with some of the fire seasons we've seen in Western Canada recently, like that just seems incredibly negligent. Like, I don't know how you can do that.
No. Well, this argument has been going on for ages, hasn't it? And it is going on in BC as well. I don't know if BC is better. I mean, I think they are.
Maybe recently they've tried to be better. I don't know. Yeah.
But this, like, you know, this beetle has been killing trees now for ages.
Forever. Yeah.
Yeah, and the argument has been going on forever as well. But I think a lot of people say that it's actually not necessarily a bad thing for the overall ecosystem, because like bugs and stuff can use these trees, and I think that might factor into it a bit. It's like, do we really want to hurt the bugs? They love these dead trees. But I just feel like, yeah, they've obviously screwed up here, haven't they? There's no other way to put it. And what's interesting is this is what Danielle Smith said, and lots of other people in Alberta said this. They were like, this is your fault. Like this is the fault of you know, the federal government in effect, which is in control of Parks Canada.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like you said, you know, maybe it's good, it's natural for these pine beetles, these bugs to do their thing, and wildfires, we've heard it many times, you know, wildfires are a normal, natural part of the world. But the part you want to jump in and have human intervention in is preventing it from burning important things, you know? Like, yeah, I think it's great if it burns a swath of forest out in northern BC or Alberta and it's far away from everything and it lets, you know, everything regenerate and this and that. And I don't have the exact details. I'm, you know, not an expert in that regard, but I know some of that is very good. You know, when it's bad is when it all of a sudden happens right next to Jasper or right next to West Kelowna, where that's where you want to have some intervention and some proactive intervention to ensure that these, you know, we're taking out bits of forest that are dead, that, you know, are next to towns or next to whatever it may be. So yeah, this seems like a massive oversight, and I'm sure it's not the last we've heard of it. This will probably blow up in a pretty significant way.
Yeah. And then look further down in this Blacklock's article, look what Stephen Guilbeault, who's the Environment Minister, what he said in response: rising average temperatures which create dry. So he just blamed it on climate change. I mean, okay, I'm sure climate change will have had something of an effect there, but this isn't a climate change story, is it? This is a maladministration story. And there's Harjit Sajjan as well saying the same thing. Sadly, the community of Jasper was a victim of climate change. It's like, no. And again, like, we've seen the devastating impact of climate change and wildfires as a result of what's taking place.
Yeah.
Therefore, the premise there is, therefore, get the carbon tax on, recycle, stop doing it. It's like, we're in Canada. We're in a country of 41.5 million people. There is nothing that we can do to change the temperature of the planet. I would love it if we could reach an agreement with the likes of Harjit Sajjan and Stephen Guilbeault. Just reach an agreement where we say, look, we know this is nonsense. Like, please stop doing this. Like, let's speak seriously. Let's treat each other like adults, please.
I'd love to just quickly address, there was a comment there I just caught out of the corner of my eye. Someone said people do live in northern BC. Yes, I know that. And I didn't mean just, all of northern BC or Alberta. Obviously, there are a lot of communities up there, a lot of cities up there. I just meant there's more open area. So you sometimes, obviously, last year there was massive fires up there that had a massive impact on human life and cities and towns. I'm talking about, medium-sized fires sometimes, and it doesn't have to be northern BC. There's areas, in the southern half of the province where there is a lot of room for, fire to burn, and it's healthy and it can be stopped at a river or whatever it is. I shouldn't just lump northern BC as a section of the country that can just burn away. I don't mean that. I just mean there are areas where, yeah, you have a fire and it's like, okay, well, this fire is going to burn this way. We'll contain it from this way. It's going to reach that river and, it'll be good. Regenerative for this forest. We're 100 kilometers away from a town, this and that. And then there's, like we said, different fires that are close to town and obviously a much bigger deal. But yeah, just to go back to your climate change thing very quickly, I'm sure it doesn't help that we've had a lot of drought and things are warmer. Absolutely. But that's not Jasper's not a victim of climate change. Like whether it's a degree hot or average, like these fires can still happen. You got to be able to manage the forests and protect, towns and cities. And that's not a victim of climate change. That's poor forest management. So,
and even if it was a victim of climate change, it's not Canada's fault. And there's nothing Canada can do,
exactly.
Because
yeah.
Canada is not China, the US, and India combined. Like they could do something if they all did it at the same time. But it's almost like a narcissism, isn't it? It's like this idea that we're so important. I'm sorry to say, like we're not that important.
Like we can change him. We can change the world. No, not alone. Like it's like us trying to push a massive boulder and it's just one dude. It's like Canada being like, we can do it. And then without, China 3 guys and the US 5 guys, like without those other 10 people, you're not gonna budge that boulder. I see this guy saying fires can jump rivers. I understand that. If you haven't realized the point of what I was saying with fires in unincorporated, unpopulated areas, I can't help you there. I just mean there are places where fires are okay. So they're gonna happen. You got to protect as well as you can cities, humans, and all that stuff. But fires are a normal part of the ecosystem. Anyways, moving on. More Holly Doan. This our friend Jimbo, but Canadian Heritage paying for research that asked CBC News and other journalists if they are subject of hurtful remarks by conservative politicians or rivals.
That's hilarious, isn't it? So what's that? That's 10 Danielle Smith meeting President Trump trips. That's what that cost.
So seven. It was 10,000, so seven. Yeah.
Yeah. That's seven face-to-face encounters with Donald Trump. Would you rather have that, or would you rather have whatever the hell this is? Asking CBC journalists if they're upset.
Yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing who will take money off you if you're stupid with money. Like, people will take money off you for absolutely anything, won't they? Like that, it's so easy to spend money, especially it seems when you ring up the consultants or whatever. In this case, it's UBC, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah. Questionnaires were not disclosed. I'd like to see those questions.
How in God's name can you spend $70,000 on this? They could have just done this on what's that thing called, like Survey Monkey or something. They could have just done it like that. Like,
yeah, and
what
look, like,
the hell? What have they done?
I'll be straight up. Like, I do think aggressiveness and anger towards the media is a somewhat of an issue these days, and a lot of the time it's unwarranted. Sometimes there's fair criticism. I think people, not just in Canada, all over the world are a lot of the times unfairly very, very aggressively harsh towards journalists that are trying to do and usually doing a good job. I'm not going to sit here and just shit on every single journalist out there. I still think there's a lot of very qualified ones doing a good job that are just constantly just, criticized in a pretty aggressive way. But yeah, this is a massive waste of money in my opinion. I think
but it's also like, we're talking about CBC here. It's a bit different with CBC, isn't it? They're not normal journalists. That's not a normal news organization.
It said
we
CBC
pay for that.
Other journalists, though.
Yeah.
So now we pay for
Indeed.
that, and we pay for the study to see if they're sad and getting.
But we also pay for. We don't just pay for CBC journalists. We also pay for basically every journalist in this country that you've ever heard of, because we pay for them through subsidies, which we don't get. But so we don't pay for
I
ourselves.
suppose, yeah, I see
Our
what you
taxes
mean.
don't pay for us.
Yeah. So we weren't part of this Canadian heritage study.
No.
But
I just think,
yeah,
yeah,
that is a good point. I get what you mean.
Look, it's a different dynamic entirely when you're at the CBC, and they should be held to much, much higher standards, and they can't just complain about it and cry about it, especially when they are quite transparently left liberal biased. They're going to get a lot of criticism. Of course they are. You're paid for by the entire country. Every taxpayer in this country has to pay for CBC, but they don't represent every taxpayer, so that's going to upset people, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's fair. I just, I think you've probably seen it as well. I mean, some of the emails we get, we're not funded by anyone, and we get sometimes just ridiculous feedback, like very aggressive, and like we can laugh it off, but at the end of the day, it's sometimes just what people want to say to the media is quite insane. But yes, you're 100% right. Obviously, people, fund CBC journalists, and to a different extent fund, other outlets like CTV and Global through subsidies and whatnot. So yes, I think you're completely right in that. But $68,640 to see if they were hurt by remarks.
Not cool.
Yeah, usually I just laugh off those emails and then leave for the day and go enjoy my life. So
I did quite a lot of crying. I wept for quite a long time. Yes, was it yesterday, 2 days ago, when I was called a socialist in a soccer shirt? That made me very sad, obviously.
Well, you shouldn't have worn that shirt.
It's a lovely shirt. I'm not having that.
Okay, so I think we're up next here to 5 things. There's some interesting stuff in your 5 things today. So why don't you kind of take us through that?
All right, Denmark. This is what it's taken, apparently, for Denmark to summon the US ambassador. Finally, there's a story in the Wall Street Journal about how apparently American spies have been told to go and focus on Greenland. And then Denmark's foreign minister has said, this is worrying to me because we do not spy on friends. Apparently, this foreign minister missed the Edward Snowden revelations, which showed that Americans have been spying on friends for a very, very long time.
Yeah. There's a lot of talk about American friends these days, from Carney, from Denmark, but they might not be friendly as you once thought. But yeah, that's been going on for a long time. I'm not sure why that would be a surprise.
It's all just a show, I think, isn't it? I mean, the Danish, they must be like having a real panic now about Greenland, because they know that they can't hold on to it if the Americans want it.
They can't be feeling good about it.
No. Yeah, because it's a bit more realistic than, I think it's more realistic than both of the other ones. Canada is obviously, there's a possibility that Canada and the US could sort of merge in the next 100 years or something like that, but that's a different question. It's not going to happen anytime soon. Panama Canal, I mean, for many reasons, I don't think that's going to happen. But Greenland, yeah, that's kind of that's a possible one. But it would require the Greenlanders to want to do it, and they don't seem to want to do it. So
I don't think they do. But also, I read a study a while back that I can't remember all the details from, but it feels like Denmark might even be again, maybe they're just being stubborn and they're like, no, this wasn't our idea, we don't want to. But giving up Greenland could actually end up being a good thing for them. I'm not saying they should. I'm not saying what Trump's done is a proper way to do anything. But it could be a win-win at the end of the day. But I think the way it came about, there's probably no way they're going to get behind it and just be no.
Yeah, they'd save a lot of money.
But they spend a lot of money on Greenland. Yeah, it just seems like it might actually be a positive for Denmark to get rid of it. But they don't seem to have any... They're not receptive to how Trump has proposed for them to get rid of it.
But it's the same with Canada. It's kind of like if he'd approached the Canada question and he was just full of positivity and it really, really nice to Canada, and let's say, just for example, hostile to the Liberal Party or something like that. But he was Canadians, this is your big chance, Canada. Like, you know, maybe then it would have worked. Not worked as in like actually been successful, but
Yeah.
it would have been a much tougher question. But as it happens, he's just like, there's a massive tariff for absolutely no reason. We don't need any of your stuff. You're all gonna be unemployed because I consider our trading arrangement to be a subsidy. It's like, how stupid was that? Just like alienated the entire country and then said he wanted Canada to join.
Yeah. But even then, like, there's a lot more to it, as in, like, that's our identity. Love Canada. Like, we've been around. How many Danes are like, I really identify with, like, Greenland? Like, it's really important to my life here in Denmark that we keep Greenland. Like, it doesn't. It's definitely a different level of, like, all right, Canadians, you're becoming American, to, like, Denmark, you're giving up Greenland. Like, that doesn't change anything for anyone in Denmark, I would imagine. I can't say it for sure, but I would imagine.
Yeah, I don't think.
Like, no Danes are like, man, I woke up today being thankful we got Greenland. Like, I would imagine.
I guess it's kind of like, it's a blast from the past for them, isn't it? It's like going back to the Vikings and Leif Erikson and all that. All those people that went off there, and the Vikings that created the Norse Empire, which even extended to Canada, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But nowadays, not many Danes live there. It's not like the Vikings that are living there. They're mostly Inuit, aren't they, that live in Greenland? Because the Inuit came later on, later than the Vikings landed in Canada as well. And they sort of took over a lot of the Arctic. So it's not like it's Danish now in terms of the population. I don't think they speak Greenlandic as well. They don't even, it's not like they're speaking Danish, I don't think. So
No, I don't think so.
I don't know.
All right, we're running pretty late on time. Why don't you run through these last 5 things bits, and then we can get into some memes, I believe.
Okay, I'll do this one really quickly then. Canadian Blood Services want your blood right now. They want to get 1 million new donors in 5 years because the demand is like much higher than the supply. Donate blood. Do it right now. I can actually do it now.
Yeah,
because people born in Britain weren't. We weren't allowed to do it for some reason, but now we can. So.
I did for a little while when I was younger. I couldn't for many years because of medication I was on. I actually can again now, so I got to get back into that. My dad, before he got sick many years ago, donated. He's one of those kind of, where does it say here? Incredibly dedicated active donors. That would be my dad. He went like every 80 days or whatever the number was, 56 days. I can't remember.
Wow.
And he was up to like 100 donations before he got sick and obviously couldn't do it anymore. So I've always wanted to follow in that footstep a little more. I couldn't for a while. I got to get back into it. So it's a very easy process. You're in there for, 15 minutes, little prick, little blood. You're out of there with a cookie and some juice. It's pretty important stuff. And I very much encourage you, Iain, and everyone out there, all the viewers, to donate blood if you can. Encourage your friends and family to. It's a nice feel-good thing, too. You feel pretty good leaving there. So,
there's a very real chance that you're going to save someone's life. So how could you feel better than that?
It's a pretty cool feeling for sure. Okay, moving on.
Yeah, next one is Melanie Jolie has repeated Jolie Mel. She's repeated a comment made by Mark Carney, which is that Canada is the most European of all non-European countries, which is a dubious statement, I would argue. And then she goes on to say Canada's been over-reliant on the US for too long and instead should be close to Europe. I have my doubts about that, since the European economy, not only is it thousands of miles away over an ocean, which creates problems for trade, but it also sucks. It's very stagnant. The Europeans have so many problems of their own. Anyway, next one here is the Americans. The Americans have done a deal with the British. That's the first post-Liberation Day deal, and it's with His Majesty's Britannic Empire, and they're gonna. It's not much of a deal, really, but they're trying to make it seem as if it's like the biggest thing that's ever happened. But there's like steel. They're gonna have, from a Canadian perspective, it's massive. Canada would have loved this deal, but it's like steel and aluminium, and cars are included in it, and then the British are going to take American beef, some nice Iowa beef.
I love the way you say. I love the way you say aluminum. It's one of my favorite British pronunciations. You know what the other one is? Yogurt. I love the way
Oh
British
yeah,
yogurt.
yogurt. Yeah,
Yogurt.
yogurt.
Yeah.
You got to pronounce the H. Yogurt.
Yogurt. Okay.
But yeah,
Sorry,
aluminium. I can't. I mean, I'm willing to say gas station,
aluminum.
all the rest of it, but I
Yeah.
can't. I just can't do aluminum. I can't
I would
take
imagine
myself to that
it's
point.
wired into
Sorry.
it. Yeah, no, that's fair. No, it's part of your culture. Come on. Is that the big trade deal they were or the big announcement they were teasing, or is that something else coming tomorrow? They were saying there's a big
Yeah,
announcement for
I
Saudi
think
Arabia.
it is. Oh yeah. Oh, you're on about that one. Yeah, they did tease this one, but then there was the other one. Yeah, I guess that's something to do with Iran, maybe some kind of deal with Iran. I know that's on the cards. I mean, it could also be Gaza. Could be to do with that. But I don't know.
Ian, did we want to play this this thing?
Nah, that's the whole. That's the whole.
That's the whole
press
thing.
conference.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
don't know.
we do not have time for that. All right, what else do we got before memes? Before Jimbo's
We've
meme?
got Jim. Jim has reached all the way from San Francisco to give us this story about Chinese hybrids and combustion engine cars. It's just about oh, hold on. It's Chinese EVs are losing momentum in Europe, is what this story is actually about.
Okay, we don't have the slides, so why don't we save that for tomorrow's show with you and Jim can dive into it a little more.
Yeah, it's all about the main story here is the Chinese auto industry is a big beast, basically, and we like to talk about that, Jim and myself.
Yeah. Okay. Well, on to the memes. Let's end on a laughable note. I saw a few of these floating around Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, yesterday. Just kind of funny. Like one was Ohio. I forget what it was, but all these kind of like these little communities being like, "Oh, this is rising. This means this," and they're kind of funny. I got to think of one for Kelowna. I don't know. Kelowna doesn't have much of a culture, so it's hard to think of one.
Maybe it would be that the lake, Okanagan Lake, is a nice enough temperature for a dip.
Yeah, there you
That's
go.
what it should be. Dip temperature announced.
Yeah, or like smoke the Albertans have arrived for the summer. All right, next one. Parasite disgusted to find it. See, this one I find very funny because I think 99% of politicians are shady. So, yeah, that's pretty good.
There's something. I don't know if it's the person or if it's the job, but yeah, it's slimy, isn't it?
That's a very good question. You know, what came first, the chicken or the egg? The slimy politician or the slimy guy or girl?
Yeah,
I'm sure it varies, but that's an interesting kind of thought. Next one. We got a laugh out of the producer for this one too, from the background here. That's pretty good. That is pretty good. And then I believe one.
It's bad, isn't it? India, they have a moral responsibility to completely exterminate all scams, don't they, that originate in India? Because it's not fun. Nobody likes it. It does bad things for India's reputation. Like, stop. Please stop.
The sad thing is they work. They obviously work. I mean, not on me, not on you, I'm sure, but they obviously it's
on grannies. That's what makes it so bad. It's grannies that they get, isn't it?
But yeah, they need to stop. And then one more here about San Francisco. Gulf of Criminals. Let's rename every Gulf. All right. Yeah. Well, on that note, I'm going to wrap this up because we're well over an hour, and I'm sure people are sick of us.
Probably. Go and watch the Pope cam.
Yes, I'm actually going to. Yeah, no more work today. We're on Pope watch.
Yeah. Put your big hat on.
Oh, I believe the Pope revealed itself.
Oh, we got a Pope?
Do you want to look that up really quickly? Let me know who it is.
I'm watching the live stream here, and I'm not seeing it, but...
Cardinale Prevost.
Ooh.
There he is. Looks like he's a whitey.
So disappointed. 6 minutes ago, new Pope. All right. So do we have a name yet? No? I like this quote. I don't know what I just brought up in NBC Update, but the quote is, "I'm rooting for Pizza Bala because I just like him instinctively."
So that isn't the Pope. That's a cardinal.
Oh, okay. So we're not quite at the reveal yet.
Yeah, the cardinal he's dragging it out, isn't he? This is his moment.
Oh,
This
so
is
he's
the moment he spent his life on.
to reveal it. Okay, well, in that case,
Yeah.
why don't we wrap up so people can switch from the really big show to the really big Pope show and watch the Cardinal do the big reveal.
Oh, hold on.
Oh,
I don't know if he's going to walk out now. He's going to walk out onto the balcony right now. So I don't know if you want to.
okay. Yeah, let's watch it, I guess. Let's watch it together.
Here he comes, drum roll.
Oh, they're really happy.
Oh, it's Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost. And he's American. It's the American dude.
Is that the new one, or do we know yet?
Yeah, it is. It is. It's the American. That's a big deal. Wow, there's an American Pope? I never thought I'd see the day.
I thought you said one of them would be wearing white.
Yeah, he will. He will when he comes out.
Oh. Oh, who's the guy in black in the middle there? That is hood. There's a devout Catholic watching this show right now. You're probably sickened by it.
Yeah, probably absolutely sickened.
Our feedback.
So it looks like he's going to be called Leo, Pope Leo. Very,
Pope Leo,
very cool.
like Pope Leo, like Leo.
Yeah, Leo.
Yeah, nice. That's
Leo the what's that? Leo the 13th, I think.
That I do not know. All right, well, let's finally wrap this bad boy up. Let's get back.
Enjoy your Pope.
That's well, I know what I'm doing for the rest of the day. I'm on official Pope watch. Awesome. Yeah. Well, once again, thanks for joining us on this Thursday, May 8th edition of The Really Big Show. On behalf of our producer, on behalf of managing editor Iain Burns, I am Josh Duncan, and thank you for watching Now Media.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent.